Hello, today we're considering the poem Absent from Thee by John Wilmot, the 2nd Earl of Rochester. Before we start, if you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, it would be greatly appreciated if you would. Many thanks. I have the poem here, so let's start. Absent from thee I languish still, then ask me not when I return. The straying fool 'twill plainly kill, to wish all day, all night to mourn. Dear, from thine arms then let me fly, that my fantastic mind may prove the torments it deserves to try, that tears my fixed heart from my love. When, wearied with a world of woe, to thy safe bosom I retire, where love and peace and truth does flow, may I contented there expire. Lest once more wandering from that heaven, I fall on some base heart unblessed, faithless to thee, false, unforgiven, and lose my everlasting rest. If Lord Byron were the bad boy of literature, then John Wilmot would give him a good run for his money. Wilmot was a libertine, devoted to a life of hedonistic pleasure and debauchery. There's a lot to unpack in this poem, so let's start. Wilmot was a favourite of King Charles II during the restoration of the monarchy following the English Civil War and the death of Oliver Cromwell. Such was their closeness, they even shared the same mistresses, one of them notably Nell Gwyn. The poem is interesting to read as it leads us to question, to whom is it addressed? His long-suffering wife, who he married for her wealth and eloped with twice because her family were understandably against their union, or to one of a string of lovers over his relatively brief life. Despite his failings as a faithful husband, he was renowned for his writing talent and satirical poetry. And Absent from Thee falls into this category, because we must approach this as a humorous poem that does not take itself too seriously and pokes fun at the genre of the poem it imitates, the love poem, especially the ones where the speaker expresses his undying love and faithfulness to his lover. Wilmot instead subverts the conventional romantic poem. In the same way, Shakespeare, in his sonnet 130, My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun, pokes fun at the love sonnet. The first line does not give us any clues that it's going to set about satirising love poems. Like any trickster, the poet reels us in with the conventional setup. Two lovers are apart, and he is languishing, wasting away by their parting. So far, so good. As in many love poems, line 1 begins with an apostrophe to his lover. An apostrophe is a poetic and rhetorical term, meaning a direct address to someone who cannot reply. He tells her that while he's away from her, he languishes. He is wilting from his longing for her. But the second line abruptly takes a turn. Then ask me not when I return. He says that now you know that I long for you when I'm away. Can you please stop asking me about when I'm going to return? Now the reader begins to sense that the poem is not quite as it seems. In this poem, the speaker freely admits to his lover that he enjoys sex with other women, and while away from her wants to indulge in relationships with other women. and on greater scrutiny, on line 3, the speaker is not saying it would kill him to stay away. The straying fool 'twill plainly kill, meaning that languishing and pining for her would kill only fools. Wilmot is mocking the type of pining lovers often found in love poems, and by implication, the poets who write conventional love poems. In line 4, Wilmot uses chiasmus, inverting the first phrase in the following phrase: to wish, all day, all night, to mourn. The chiasmus stresses that these lovers would enjoy mourning for their lovers and being miserable all the time, implying that being miserable because he's away from her is not for him. Ironically, Wilmot's use of chiasmus, a classical rhetorical device, makes the speaker sound even more insincere because he's using an elegant, formal, poetic voice to communicate something scandalous, base, and insulting to his lover. This writing style creates bathos and signals to us that he is disingenuous and trying to cover his base lusts with excuses. The second stanza uses an apostrophe as he exclaims, "Dear!" This melodramatic entreaty adds more humour and makes the speaker appear more insincere. "Dear, from thine arms then let me fly, that my fantastic mind may prove the torments it deserves to try, that tears my fixed heart from my love." By now, we realise the speaker is superficial. Fantastic mind is a euphemism for his sexual fantasies. He tells his lover he harbours many sexual fantasies and wants to try these out and realise them with other women. He states to his lover that he knows fulfilling his fantasies will lead to torments. Perhaps he is referring to the torments of hell because he is sinning. But despite knowing these potential perils, the speaker still wants to try them, even if it means tearing his fixed heart, meaning he only loves her, but his urges tears him from her. Note, like many humorous poems, the use of pun, as tears can also be read as tears. When wearied from a world of woe, to thy safe bosom I retire, where love and peace and truth does flow, may I contented there expire. To add insult to injury, in stanza 3, he promises her that whatever has gone on between him and the other women he's met, he will return to her. He says that once he is wearied and feeling woe, the guilt of his misdemeanours, he will retire, return. Yet wearied also means his lusts have been satiated, satisfied, and woe is ambiguous, possibly suggesting that he is full of woe because his relationships with other women didn't work out. He will return to her arms and the security of their relationship, thy safe bosom. In stanza 3, line 3, he praises the love and peace and truth of the relationship, and that he would be content to expire, die in her arms. Expire means death, but also it has sexual connotations. Expire meaning consummating the sexual act, and he states he would be happy to die during the sexual act with her. Wilmot uses hyperbole like expire to make the poem ironic and funny. His idea of truth might also diverge and be at odds with that of his lover. He believes he is being truthful to his lover by telling her of his sexual fantasies and desires. His lover, understandably, may hold a different opinion. Note how the poet, for comic effect, uses alliteration to elongate the reading of the line, "when wearied with a world of woe," to emphasize and exaggerate that he is drained from sleeping around. This exaggerated, inflated alliteration makes the poem funnier and supports the poet's satirical intent by making the poem ridiculous, like the sentiments of the love poems he seeks to mock. The outrageous behaviour of the speaker indicates that he would be far from woeful or repentant at what he has done, and in reality has enjoyed himself. In the final stanza, he declares his inability to stay faithful. He implores his lover to allow him to remain in her arms, or he may be tempted away again. Lest once more wandering from that heaven, I fall in some base heart unblessed, faithless to thee, false, unforgiven, and lose my everlasting rest. In the final stanza, the poet uses religious imagery and references. He compares his official girlfriend to heaven, and straying and playing away is like falling from heaven. And in this metaphor, he compares himself to Satan, being cast from heaven for his pride. But comically, his fall is broken by a woman beneath him. I fall on some base heart unblessed. Here, fall has the sexual connotation of falling on a body, heart to heart, a base heart unblessed. Ironically, he does not blame his weakness, but blames the other woman for tempting him. He criticizes her base heart, unblessed, meaning false or faithless. Comically, at the end, the speaker attempts moral blackmail. He warns his lover that if she did not take him back, he would stray and sin again and lose my everlasting rest. Losing my everlasting rest means that when he died, he would not go to heaven but suffer the torments of hell. Disingenuously, he states that she would be saving his soul by being understanding and allowing him to return to her. While archaic today, thy and thee, your and you, were used in Wilmot's time and gives the reader a clear sense of when the poem is set. The use of enjambment, run-on lines, makes the poem conversational, and we can imagine him in conversation with his bemused lover. The poem is written as a song and uses rhyming couplets so that lines are presented as lyrics. Wilmot therefore also subverts the typical love song because his poem Song carries the unromantic proposition that his girlfriend should let him try the torments of infidelity. By making this outrageous proposition to his lover is another way Wilmot satirises conventional love poems and notions of fidelity to one partner. The poem uses iambic tetrameter to give it jaunty rhythmic propulsion throughout. Then ask me not when I return. The choice of metre mimics a pounding heart, fitting for a poem which seeks to subvert love poetry. At intervals, the poet uses trochee, stressed, unstressed patterns, a stressed, unstressed foot, dum da, rather than an I am, absent from the I languish still. This lends extra energy, for instance, dear and faithless that my fantastic mind may prove. The deliberate use of slant rhyming, return, mourn, heaven, unforgiven, makes the poem, just like the speaker in the poem, far from perfect. Wilmot, tongue-in-cheek, while cheekily revealing his libertine outlook, delivers a fine satirical poem. John Wilmot, 2nd Earl of Rochester, 1647 to 1680, was infamously preoccupied with sex, so much so that contemporaries wrote plays about this notorious philanderer. When John Dryden satirised Wilmot, he responded by hiring thugs to beat him up. Rochester considered publishing beneath a noble, and instead wrote his poems on parchment and gifted them to other courtiers. Consequently, when he died, he left behind few published poems, and these received little recognition, mainly as they were considered risque. Only in the 1920s did his work reach a larger and appreciative audience. Absent from Thee, which does not take itself seriously, reveals Wilmot's wit and humour, and why he attracted so many women, if we discount his wealth and position at court. Also, his brazen admission that he enjoyed sex simply for pleasure was brave in a time of outward morality and religious conformity. Like Byron, this bad boy persona likely attracted women. Alas, Wilmot's libertine excesses caught up with him, and he died aged 33, unsurprisingly of venereal disease. Many thanks for watching this video, and I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If so, please hit the like button below. Also, check out our other videos on writing and textual analysis. If you haven't subscribed yet, it would be fantastic and greatly appreciated if you would. Many, many thanks. Until next time, from Carol and me, write well.